Today we're doing something a little bit different. A lot of people are growing their hair out from comb overs and shorter styles into sweepbacks and so forth. But Dan, where he's had the sweepback for a while, he's one of the sweepback final bosses. He's actually doing the opposite. He's got to a stage where his hair is driving him mad, it's too long, the maintenance on a day-to-day isn't practical at the moment, and it's taking the fun out of the style. First things first, you want to wet the hair down. The parting's already in, so we're just going to start by doing our sections on top. We're going to start from the front to the crown area, doing 6 sections back. And this is when you ask your client how much length that they would like off. Where do you reckon? What are you thinking?
So a tiny little bit more.
So about here?
About there, yeah. Cool.
That's a decent shot, yeah?
Yeah.
Happy with that? It's too late now.
Yeah, no going back.
That's it. Cool. So we've started just behind the fringe because it's good to get in the habit of, especially when you're new to scissor work, just getting warmed up. And then what we do is work your way back and we'll get the fringe in later. You can't afford to make mistakes on the fringe. Once the fringe is too short, that's it, the whole haircut's ruined. So we've just done our first section. We've started from behind the fringe and we're cutting 180 degrees up, directly straight. And then we're moving slightly over to the right, and that'll be our second section. Where the head curves, it's important to make sure that the hair is nice and square, that the layers are nice and square. You don't want to follow the shape of the head because your client's head will look like a peanut. The first section that we done was directly in line with my client's nose. So we come through from the front here to the back 6 times. Then I moved slightly to the right and I followed the guide. And then I moved over to the parting side, so slightly to the left. And then the fourth section that I'm going to pick up is where the head starts to curve. So if you just place the comb there, you could see right about there, you want to keep it nice and square. So where the hair starts to curve, you want to keep a lot of bulk and a lot of weight there just to complement the head shape and make sure that it's nice and square. If you go and match in the scissor work with the shape of your head, then it's going to be a problem. All of your clients are going to look like a bowling ball or a peanut head, and it doesn't really do them any favours whatsoever. So this is section number 4. As you can see, I'm literally pinching from behind the fringe again, and this is on the curve of the head. But we're just going to follow our guide. It's really important, now that you know how to pick up the hair, how to cut the hair and so forth, now it's all about the angles. So as you can see, I'm keeping it nice and upright here. I would say 170 degrees on the angle, because we want to keep a lot of the length for the layers, all right? And then just follow your guide and come through like so. Nice, small, neat sections. The key to a sweepback is making sure that your scissor cuts and your sections are nice and neat, and that's where the movement comes from. So when we style it in, and you can see all the types of layers, that's the key to it, that's the foundations. The reason why I mention that you have to do 6 sections is that they're going to be nice, small and neat, and that's where the movement comes from. If you ever miss a section or feel like you want to go over your work, if you've done 4 or 5 and you lose count, you can always go back and double check your work. Now I'm going to show you how to match in the fringe. So the fringe has to be longer than the rest of the haircut. Same thing, comb all the hair back and then pinch from the middle, like so. And you can see where the guide is. Same thing, you don't want to go flat on where the guide is, you want to angle the fringe up slightly so that the fringe is longer and it goes down towards the crown, alright? Cool. And then, as you can see, have the scissors in line with your fingers and then just cut like so and just match it in. So we're going to come towards us now. And you want to keep everything uniform. You want to keep your fingers uniform, your sections uniform, and even your scissors. And that way there's going to be a nice flow to the finished product. And then we're going to be going away from our bodies now, just to finish up. And before we get into the sides, we'll do one last section, which will be number 6 again. And that's it. The fringe is now matched in shape. And while we're here, we're also going to check through the scissor work on top. A lot of barbers can't be bothered to check through their work, and you'll notice a difference on the finished product because it just doesn't flow as much. They won't do as many sections, and yeah, when it comes to styling in, and even the quality of the haircut, when it grows out, if it's all uneven, it hasn't got a flow to it, it's just not good quality. And that's why when you focus on the details, you can charge way more for your haircuts and you can put your prices up. When it comes to cross-checking, we start at the fringe. The fringe has to be the longest of the layers on top, and then we start moving back through the middle of the head and then towards the crown area. Just make sure that the crown area is shorter than the fringe, whilst keeping the crown area nice and square, not following the shape of the head again. Because if you follow the shape of the head, yet again, just reaffirming that message, you're going to cut too much hair off and you're going to give a round edge to their head and it won't look very good. Yeah, phase 1 is done. We've cut down the top. Now we're going to crack on with the parting side, and then we'll work our way round to the right hand side as well, and we'll just match in the layers for the sweepback. We're going to be reducing quite a lot of bulk today, so your first initial guideline has to be very accurate. The hair on top is starting to flow now. That's looking good. But on the side panel, as you can see, this is really, really long here, right? So we're going to have to reduce a lot of this, but you don't want to overdo it because once it's gone, it's done. We're going to wet down the hair, and I'm going to show you exactly how to cut down the side panel step by step. So get your comb, drive the hair towards you, have your finger on the tension with your left hand, get your comb and comb down the hair. The fringe needs to be out of the way, so just place that back. Get the tension. This is going to be your first guide, so what you want to do is match in the amount that you took off from the top, like so. I'd rather do a little bit. This is a little bit of advice here. I'd rather take off too little and keep on going back to get the right length. As a process, I like to ask my client throughout the haircut, is that the right length? Are you happy with that? Because once you go too short, a lot of clients are going to leave you and be like, that barber, he hasn't listened to what I've said. Unfortunately, he's taking it too short. I'm not happy. I'm going to go somewhere else. And experienced barbers know that we get a lot of new clients just from that exact problem and that pain point. So to me, that looks like a healthy amount off. And then we'll just go along with our scissors and come through our layers. Don't go past your knuckle. That's your initial guide. And then match it in. And then there we go. Keep on working round. Finish off the side panel. And then as the head starts to curve, we're going into the back panel now. So we're just going to stop there and concentrate on the side panel. Yeah, now we're just checking through. So it's starting to flow, right? Now we're going to move slightly up. Same section, but just slightly higher. Use our guide. What you want to be concentrating on is the amount of hair you're taking off, where the guide is, and also the angle from the previous guideline. That's how you know how much to take off. So the hair is under tension right now, but if his hair wasn't under tension, it'll be laying down flat. We're not over directing it too much. But if your first section is nice and uniform like this, and then you start over directing it, that's when the guidelines aren't going to match up. So just be mindful of that. As you can see here, I'm combing the fringe away because you don't want to take that too short, so just be mindful of that. And now we're just working up and matching the side panel into the top of your client's hair. Just repeating the same process over and over. It's all transferable. The more reps you do, the more fluid you get. I've now moved my way up through the side panel and I'm now going to connect the fringe, but the angle in how I cut the fringe and how I connect it is very important, because you need to make sure that the fringe, yet again, is longer than the side panels and the hair behind it. Now I'm literally checking through how this is sitting in, and that to me looks pretty healthy. Just ask your client if they're happy with the length before we do any more work. How's that looking, Dan?
Yeah, length's perfect, mate. Good.
Yeah, cool. So we'll do the left-hand side now, your parting side. We'll start the clipper work and then we'll start matching it in and just finessing all the details. Right, as you can see at the moment, there's a lot of hair that's been removed. So Dan, he hasn't mentioned it, but I'm just thinking about my client's comfort at all times. So I'm just going to get the hairdryer or the neck brush and just literally dust all the hairs off. Yeah, you just want to be thinking about your client's comfort throughout, especially if you're new to cutting hair. It's going to take you quite a long time to get a very good haircut. It could be up to an hour, sometimes even longer. Now we're going to be cutting down the side panel, the comb over side. So my client Dan, his hair is really, really long. He previously had the Sweepback, so it's quite technical. It can be quite daunting because a lot of people don't really know how to approach this. So I'm going to show you step by step how to reduce the length down and get prepared for the clipper work and the fade lines and so forth. Make sure that the hair is wet. Just keep on checking that throughout. Once the hair starts to dry up, the hair is going to get really light. When the hair is wet, you can influence the hair and it's needed for nice neat sections. Right, this is going to be section 1 on your parting side. So we've got the guide here from our clipper work, and yeah, all we're going to be doing is taking off a decent amount. So we're just going to match it into the clipper work, as you can see. Like so. Yet again, nice and clean sections on the side panel. We're just cutting to the knuckle. So we're using our thumb to drive the comb through like that. Using our thumb to hold the hair out of the way, comb it down with your thin side of the comb and match it into the guide. So we're just slightly moving up now. This is our third section. Other people will just cut this in one section, to be fair, really lazy. These finer details will be the difference in you being an average barber or a high ticket barber charging top money for a haircut. All we're doing now is working our way up through the sections on the side panel. Just make a note of the angles of which these sections are. They're all uniform, and that really, yet again, adds into the finer details of the finished product. As you can see, we've removed a nice amount of length off here, off the side panel. And yeah, I'm happy with that. It's nice and neat. We've done loads of sections. Look at those layers, right? And that is how you get the side panel done on the comb over side. Now we can start our clipper work. Now, what we're gonna do is just put our initial guideline in. So where Dan's got a comb over Sweepback, you want a lot of these layers, right? So I'm gonna go nice and low. I'm gonna start here, just above where I'd probably do a taper guideline, and come through here and dip it nice and low at the back as well. Same thing with your guideline. You can always take your guideline up, but once you go to wire, it's game over. Remove your client's ear out of the way. I'm happy with my initial guideline, it's nice and low. I'm now going to get my Babyliss skeletons and remove all of the excess hair underneath the initial guideline. I want to keep the cocoa trimmers nice and sharp as we don't need it. So I only use them for guidelines and shape up lines. The Babyliss skeletons are better for removing hair. What we're going to do is remove bulk with our comb. So just get your comb in there and just angle your comb, I would say 45 degrees. And start to remove bulk. Move the ear out of the way. Repeat the same process without cutting their ear. Just slide off all the excess that you don't need. The key to this is just making sure the angle of the comb is in position. You don't want to take off too much. If you're removing loads of bulk, you want to keep it flat to the head, but we're curving it in a C direction, like so, and then removing the hair like that. Now we're going to be using our foils. How you want to use your foils is just in a circular motion, so that they're not aggravating the hair that's being cut. Now to start the fade, we're going to be using our magic clips with the lever open, so a 0.5, and we're just going to be flicking up and removing that initial guideline. You want to be flicking out, removing that initial 0 line, and being mindful of not removing all the layers as well. It's a real skill to get in and out for this type of haircut. When you're fading, your flick's going to be your best friend. So the more you practice, the better you'll get. So that's going to be our 0.5 guideline, and before we go up and do anything else, we're just going to remove the bottom line. So I'm going to close the lever now, and same thing, we're just going to flick out underneath the 0.5 line. So we're just removing the initial guideline without creating any more work for ourselves. For you to get a clean finish on a fade, you need to make sure that every single guideline and your clippers are always symmetrical with the lines below and above, just to get the seamless fade finish that you're looking for. Before we proceed forward with our clipper work, we're now going to do clipper over comb, just to smooth out the blend from the clipper work into your sweepback layers. So each time we go up, we can see what needs to be faded out, but we're also protecting all of the layers that are coming back. When you're flicking out, you need to make sure that you're removing hair each time with each stroke. If you can't hear the crunch of the hair cutting, then you're not cutting the hair and you're doing something wrong. We've done the right hand side up to a 0.5. We've left the shape up area nice and dark so that we can give a nice C-cup later on. When you put in your guideline, make sure that you leave the temple area, the C-cup area, nice and dark and full until right at the end. That's when we're going to shape it up. What I like to do is leave both of the C-cup areas right till the end, and then we can look at what side is thicker than the other. So a lot of people will just shape this side up, go around the other side, and it might not be as strong on the hairline. But if you want it to be symmetrical, then yeah, save it right till the end. You'll look at what side's heavier. Then if one side's darker than the other, you can fade it out with a number 2 guard, for example, and then shape it up. I've done the right hand side up to a 0.5 on the fade. Now I'm going to go around to the parting side, and I'm just using my mirror just to see exactly how high I need to go up on the left hand side. A good haircut's all about symmetry, so just bear that in mind. Before I start this side, before you start the clipper work, you want to get your hair in position. You want to get the hair sweeping round, and you want to start to envision exactly where you want to keep the layers from. For the guideline, I like to use my Cocos just because they're so sharp and you can see things really clearly. I'm just using the corners of my trimmers just to put the guideline in. You want to use them like a pencil. I'm also resting my hand on my client's shoulder as well as an anchor and just dabbing it through the hair where it's so long. Just take your time and keep it nice and low. You can always take the guideline higher. And then remove all the hairs that you've cut with your comb so you can see exactly where you're going to remove the hair from. You just want to get yourself into really good habits, that's all. Be nice and organised. And it all comes together. Just want to piece it all step by step. You're just repeating the same processes over and over. And that way you can get the same outcome and just keep on improving. Yeah, again, I've done the exact same process on both sides in terms of the clipper work. I've done a 0.5 line, but from what I can see, from my eye view and from my client's point of view, is that we need to remove more bulk on the parting side before we start moving on to the back, just to make sure it's nice and symmetrical. We're going to do that by using clipper over comb. Cool. Now we're using a 0.5 guard with the leather shot. Yeah, again, just flick him right out. Now we're using our #1 guard on our magic clips. Now we've completed our clipper work up to the #1 on both sides. We're going to finesse the fade later on, but just to make sure that there's symmetry throughout the haircut, we're now going to move to the back and match in the fade. Then we'll go around again and just double check the fade, make sure that the height and the symmetry's all even on both sides. But now we're focusing on the back panel. So we're just going to comb all the hair down, get it nice and wet again. And before we start putting in our guidelines with the clipper work, we're just going to comb back layers and see how it sits in. As you can see, it's meeting in the middle like a duck's tail. So we're going to come in with our 0 line like so, and then we're going to comb all the hair down and start moving through our guidelines and smooth out that fade. When I'm matching in the guideline at the back, you just want to start in the middle, just directly underneath the crown, in between the client's ears. So just literally go into the middle like that, keep it nice and straight, work your way to the right, work your way to the left, remove the bulk. Now we're just removing bulk to make sure that the bulk line is in line with where the side panels are, just to add to that symmetry. And now we could just smooth out the back panel. Now we're going to be using a 0.5 guard. Now we're using a 0.5 guard on top on our magic clips. Now it's the lever closed, just to remove that bottom guideline. Now we're using our number 1. I just want to ask my client what his thoughts are. So we've cut the side panels in, but everyone's sweepback is different. So I just like to give people preference really. So as you can see, the back here, when I comb it into position, the sweepback looks nice, but I'm just thinking from a maintenance point of view, if you leave it really, really long at the back, in a couple weeks time, this might be dangling down, it might be too heavy. Yeah, same with this side, it looks good. I'm gonna start cutting the back panel through the middle, and you can see the guide from where the crown area is, right? And you can see where the clipper work guide is, so just remove the bulk in between. We just picked up our section from the back. You can see the guide where the crown is, and you can see the guide at the bottom where the clipper work is. So we're going to remove all of this bulk there.
Make a note, as a reference point, this is a 90-degree angle and I'm pulling away from the crown to make sure that the hair lays down properly. If you make a mistake on the crown, your client's hair will be sticking up like a pineapple and it will take a long time for that to grow out and lay flat again.
The layers to be cut at a 90-degree angle. Same thing, if you take the crown too short, it's going to be sticking up. So when you're cutting the hair, just make sure that it lays down nicely in position. And yeah, you want to take off too little at the start instead of taking off too much. Right, so now we've cut the top section at the back here. Now we're going to go down and cut this lower section. Same thing, just match it in. Come to the left. Just to show you a different point of view, what the angle is. 90 degrees out, just following the guide. Now we're going to be connecting the back and the sides in terms of the scissor work. It's all just the finer details now. Just to match it in, you can see your guide there from the back panel, and you can see your guide from the side panel, knocking it into shape with our scissors, right? And then just moving up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all right? We've cut the sides in and we've cut the back in. The scissor work looks good, the clipper work is decent, but now we're just going to finesse the fade, do the last little touches, shape up the hairline. Now we're going to be using our number 1. What I like to do is just check how the haircut's looking on my phone. Just to get a second opinion on the fade. If it doesn't look good on the phone, then it doesn't look good. The phone's way more critical and way more accurate than our human eye. As you can see, I'm going really light on the shape up area. As I said, we're going to do that right at the end. But now we're just trying to smooth out the fade and just finesse all the details. Nice and easy, whilst protecting those layers. So now I've flicked out with a 1. I'm now going to clipper over comb Just comb the hair in position. Get all the hairs off your client, as we mentioned earlier. Like now, go over the comb. When you check your fade on the iPhone, you'll see blemishes and dark spots that you can finesse. So I've got a 0.5 guard on the clipper. That's essentially what I'm doing. I'm just tweaking and just focusing on those finer details just to get the top finished product that we're looking for. I'm now using clipper over comb just to finesse the blend, how we did earlier, but just yet again for the finer details. I'm now using my cocoa trimmers. I've started to shape up my client's hairline. I've started in the corner. I call this the hairline corner flag. I've just neatened up the sidebar. I'm gonna work my way to the middle and then the right hand corner of the hairline just to make sure that's nice and straight. This is how I start shaping up the C-cup. So I use my left finger as an anchor, and then my right hand sits on top of my left finger. And all I do is use my cocoa trimmer like a pencil, the way you would with a compass from back in the day, and just spin the C-cup shape nice and faintly to start getting and starting the outline of the shape up. Once you're happy with the C-cup shape, you then want to use the corner of the cocoa trimmers just to cut the hair back and forth, go against the grain and with the grain, just to emphasize that shape yet again, and then just remove any excess hairs that don't fit into the shape that you want. Now we're just going over the hairline. I'm going to start in the middle and then work my way to the right. When it comes to shaping up the hairline, the middle of the hairline, use the nose as a reference. Your corners, you want to line up and look at the eyebrows and the shape of the eyebrows. That's a good guide for you as well. So use reference points on the face to give your hairline symmetry. Your client's skin on their face is extremely sensitive, so a lot of people make the common mistake of digging the clippers in way too hard and harshly and damaging the skin. But all you need to do is lightly dab and lightly touch the hair and let your trimmers do the cutting for you. When shaping up, it's all about being accurate. So I rest my knuckles and my fingers on my client's head, cheek, eyebrows and so forth, and then just dab my clippers as an anchor, so there's less variables to control. If you try and shape up someone's hair without resting your hand on their head, it's going to be very difficult to balance. When shaping up, I like to use my other hand that's not cutting to stabilise the head. Once you're happy with the shape up, you can then move on, do your last quality control checks, go over the fade and double check everything before they walk out the door. When you're going through quality control, you're flicking out with a fade, you're also doing clipper over comb, you're using all of the skills that you've learned throughout the whole process, bringing it all together and just refining. That's the difference in a £15 haircut and a £50 haircut. Going over and giving your client confidence that when he leaves your barber's, he's had a fantastic service and he's feeling like the man. That's where the experience really does come into it. My client likes his sweepback with a wet look. So we're going to move on to the styling now. What you want to do is open your pot of D-Fi, get one dollop and rub it in your hands with the flow of the layers and get right into the root. Really manipulate and smooth out the direction of how you want the hair to sit. Once the product is nice and even throughout your client's hair, you then move on to the hairspray. Spray from a little bit of distance and cover their eyes whilst doing so. I've now got my clipper comb and I'm emphasising the movement and emphasising all the layers and directing the hair exactly how I want it to be styled in for the final finish. There you go. Yeah.
Perfect.
Sweepback season, mate. Today we've completed our skin fade with a sweepback. So we've been reducing the bulk, reducing the length. It looks banging. It looks 10 out of 10. And my client Dan's over the moon as well.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
yeah.
It's unreal.
There you go. Thank you.